UFO sightings are reported each year. Most can be debunked, but 5% remain unexplained. These are the close encounters.
Hey, cuz. What? Don't drive so fast.
Didn't I tell you I'm selling that Camaro because of the brakes?
No?
Is there anything else wrong with this thing?
I'm kidding.
It's a highway you gotta watch out for.
John Smith and his cousin Billy are heading to the town of Carmax to sell their old Camaro.
Billy and John were driving from Whitehorse. The two of them were traveling in a convoy. It's a very remote area, and it's very slippery. It's wintertime.
You're quiet tonight.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit tired, I'm sorry.
Same night, same stretch of road. 16 kilometers behind, a young family drives home after a weekend away.
The couple didn't want their real names known, so we're going to call them the Browns. They were returning from a weekend in Whitehorse, and they were going back to the village of Pelly Crossing.
I wish we'd gotten on the road just a little bit sooner.
They talked to them several times, and they never changed their story.
It's so dark.
They come to the southern tip of the lake, and they come around a corner, and they see this row of lights out in the distance.
There were no towns or villages in that area. Didn't seem to be any reason for those lights to be there, and yet there they were.
And then they think, what's a truck? There's no road out there. It's in the middle of the lake.
What is it?
I have no idea.
Plane?
They think it's an airplane, like a 747. Then they think, oh, it's moving way too slowly.
It's blowing.
They were worried as to what this was, and they had thought, well, maybe we shouldn't travel any further. Maybe we should pull off to the side of the road.
Just stop.
It's okay. We won't be long.
They were fairly certain that these lights were all on one large object.
There's nothing else that they've experienced that resembled it.
Daniel.
The mysterious object shoots off. Directly towards Billy and John Smith.
Hey, cuz.
You still awake back there?
They have no idea what's around the corner.
This was something very out of the ordinary.
On the Klondike Highway, an hour from the nearest town,
What is it?
I have no idea.
the Brown family sees a mysterious object. And on the other side of Fox Lake,
Hey, cuz.
You still awake back there?
Billy and John Smith are about to drive right into it.
Billy is driving in front of John in a truck. Billy comes down a curve. At that point, he sees this huge row of lights out over the lake. He decides to stop and watch this thing. To Billy, it seemed like it came right over to him, as if it knew he was there. He looks behind him and sees his cousin John. John didn't want to come closer. He stopped way further back. He doesn't know what to do because he was frightened.
Billy was in awe as this thing passed overhead.
The witnesses mentioned the size of a football stadium, which is immense. It's unreal.
Some UFO investigators describe huge craft as motherships, sort of an aircraft carrier for spaceships that smaller craft can fly in and out of.
John realizes, he's got a camera in the car, and he's ripping bags open.
Often you hear from people saying, well, I don't believe in UFOs until I see a photograph.
He couldn't get his camera to work properly.
In some of the close encounter cases, cameras are affected by some kind of electromagnetic field.
Billy's looking at this thing, and just the sheer size of it, it takes such a long time for it to move over. It takes several minutes. And then the UFO continues to move very slowly over the hill and then disappears.
Let's go.
So they go to the turnoff, which is just a few hundred meters down, and they pull over there at the Fox Lake campground.
They were very confused, wondering if we're not hallucinating. This was something real, and we saw it together.
We'll be right back.
The Browns arrived at the Fox Lake campground, and they see Billy and John.
Hey, are you guys okay? Yeah.
And there's this exchange of information from everybody saying, did you see that?
Did you see something?
You too?
This is unquestionably one of the best cases in North America. If two people see a UFO, or three or four, that adds to the evidence that something really was physically there. It just happened. We have witnesses who have seen it at relatively close range, and multiple witnesses who can verify that they saw a physical object.
Hey.
Not sure of what lies ahead, they decide to travel together. They would not be alone in seeing something strange that night. Similar reports of a large craft were later observed an hour away in the town of Carmax and 2 hours away in the village of Pelly Crossing. In total, more than 30 witnesses came forward with similar accounts. Drawings submitted by eyewitnesses suggest the object was 4 times the size of a football stadium, making it the largest craft ever registered in a UFO report. Some people thought the object was an airship, but airships rarely fly in winter conditions. A detailed report on the Fox Lake case was filed with the Canadian government. There has been no official response.
Secure the site.
Are we under attack?
It's the late 1960s. With 200 missiles, Malmstrom Air Force Base is the largest nuclear weapon complex in the world. It's also one of the most heavily guarded.
Got a light?
At the Oscar Flight Unit, the focus for the high security is the 10 Minuteman missiles, aimed directly at Russia.
Oscar Flight was one of many operations that were under the facility of the Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Each flight had a capability of launching 10 Minuteman ballistic missiles. Minuteman is a ballistic missile capable of reaching from the United States into the Soviet Union. When you're looking at 1967, we're in the middle of the Cold War, and there's an awful lot of animosity between the Soviet Union and the United States, and we're both worried about how belligerent the other side is going to be. He's seeing an orange-like object near the launch facility gate. It's clearly not the moon, it's clearly not a meteor, it's clearly not an aircraft. It's something he's unfamiliar with.
I see two. I'm pulling down.
The launch control facility was somewhere around 60 to 65 feet below the surface of the ground. The strategy was to bury this launch control facility underground so it would survive an atomic blast.
Lieutenant Salas.
Robert Salas is the key witness on the Malmstrom case, and I have interviewed him numerous times about it.
Unidentified. Moving north, sir. Keep watching.
Let me know if they get any closer.
Copy that.
Robert Salas didn't know what to make of this call. I mean, he was somewhat incredulous about it.
There's no threat on the console that they see. It's just a light in the sky. It's not causing any kind of problem, so he doesn't know what the concern of the airmen above him are.
But within minutes, it moves directly over the base.
Lieutenant Salas.
Sir, it's right over us.
Salas also notifies his superior, Captain Fred Mywald.
Secure the site. I'll phone the command post.
And he's getting quite concerned about it because it's coming closer to penetrating the facility.
Stay posted. Sir, it's been a strange sighting near the gate.
During the Cold War, it's a very, very big issue for something like that to happen.
Sir, right over. Sir, I won't jump.
Sir, missiles 1 and 2 are down.
At this point, Salas sees the missiles start going offline.
You have these missiles ready for launch, and they're suddenly gone.
1 through 7 are no-go.
One by one, they just all lost their capacity to launch. at the same time that the object was up above and being seen by these security people.
Captain Maiwald dispatches military guards to check on the 10 Oscar flight missiles.
The missiles themselves were scattered out around the countryside in Montana, 20 miles away from the launch control facility.
These missiles were 60 feet underground. They were way, way underground, and they were a mile apart from each other.
If you got a direct hit on a missile silo, you might take out that one missile, but you wouldn't take out the other 9 missiles. For them all to go offline is just practically unheard of. It just does not happen.
Could this possibly have been the Russians that disabled their nuclear weapons?
Sir, are we under attack?
They're confronted with something that they're not trained for.
Been a strange sighting near the gate.
A strange light moves over a Montana Air Force base and knocks out 10 nuclear missiles.
1 through 7 are no-go.
Military guards rush to the missile site in search of answers.
It was pretty clear that there was no technology that we knew of that could do that.
If the Soviets have figured out some way to deactivate the missiles, then suddenly we become very, very vulnerable to an attack.
Their initial response was, of course, to try to get them up and working again.
You're confronted with something beyond what you've been taught, something beyond what you can expect.
The entire Oscar flight system shuts down. The object is last seen headed towards the Oscar flight missile site, 30 kilometers away.
They're out on the silos. They take a look around. There's no evidence of a penetration. There's no evidence of anybody being out there.
Sir, no signs of any damage.
Should we head back to base?
Over.
The radios that they're using now are filled with static. The radios become inoperable themselves.
Turn it off.
I can't.
Airmen, be alert. Unidentified objective in your section. I repeat.
We have many cases of UFO events in which equipment is affected like this.
It's called an electromagnetic effect. As an electrical device, whatever it happens to be, approaches the UFO, that electrical system is somehow suppressed. They're confronted with something that they're not trained for. And they can't do anything about it.
Back at launch control, their system is still shut down.
Salas and Maiwald were not able to get the nuclear weapons back up and running, and they couldn't explain why they weren't working.
An hour later, the airmen returned to launch control.
Lieutenant Salas.
Want to tell me what happened?
Sir, they seen something crazy.
One of the guards was so upset by what he had seen, he refused to work on the security details from that point on because he was so frightened by what he had seen and what he had experienced on that night.
The high security incident leads to a massive investigation. Lieutenant Salas later claims the Air Force ordered him to sign documents forbidding him to ever speak of the strange events. Salas reports that the missiles were later brought back online, but government files indicate no equipment failure that night at Malmstrom. Classified documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act reveal that FAA radar data did in fact spot an unidentified craft flying over the base that night. Because Salas never actually saw the object, UFO debunkers continue to question his credibility. The incident at Malmstrom Air Force Base has never been officially explained.